just ask people about what comes up for them with the word credit card.
Today we have Khara Croswaite, a financial therapist who works at the intersection of money, masculinity, and mental health.
She helps unpack how shame, identity, and cultural pressure shape the way men earn, spend, and define security in America.
Computer science majors that are graduating today don't have jobs. There's no money for them. So all of a sudden, it makes a lot of sense for them to take a big swing and a risk because they don't feel like they have much to lose.
There is no get-rich-quick scheme, but I think men and women are both susceptible to that messaging, especially if they're feeling desperate with their finances. Of like, I gotta have something shift quick.
Which is really annoying to me.
Oh, I have to have a nice house because everyone I know has a nice house. I have to have a nice car because all of my friends have nice cars. And as people get promotions, the income and expense, they continue to climb together for the social and belonging reasons.
You can't talk about purpose and security in America without talking about money.
People lost their freedom if they owed money to people back in the day. But then we also have credit card numbers going up and up. Oh, we'll give you a higher limit. Keep spending.
I feel like our whole job as clinicians working with men is to teach guys you don't have to hold it together all the time, but you have to hold it together most of the time.
Sometimes I have people just try a quick word association, like the word credit card. What comes up? Is it mostly negative things and thoughts? What comes up for you when I say the word savings?
If there was one skill that guys could have that would make their life infinitely better about this, what would it be?
It's what I call the red light, green light, yellow light exercise. And it's coming from values. It's like, what do I value spending my money on? Green light list. What do I want to put my money towards? Red light, absolutely not. And yellow is like...
Hey, Khara, thanks so much for coming back on. I'm really excited you're here.
Happy to be back. I'm interested to see what people think of this topic, for sure.
Well, considering how well the suicide one didn't do because like we're talking about it got throttled down, I think the cheerier topic of money in America right now will go way better.
Fingers crossed.
We did a pretty good job of it being able to introduce you for the kind of credibility and the research that you put together for suicidality. But I don't know much about what a financial therapist is. Like I've seen a presentation or two of yours now, and I'm excited about it. Can you explain to us what that means?
Yeah, I mean, the curiosity here is that people will describe it a whole bunch of different ways. But I think the most common definition is that financial therapists help people with the emotions they have with money. So whether that's anger, resentment, avoidance, stress, anxiety, depression. So for the half of us that are mental health trained and now financial therapists, it's really easy for us to sit in that with folks. Like, what's your thoughts, feelings, behaviors with money? And how do we make that different, or dare I say better?
So it's not necessarily to help people figure out like what portfolio to use or how to come up with a budget.
Not at all. Yeah, actually, the running joke for us is that budget is a bad word in financial therapy because it's so shame-inducing. So we're all about zero shame, abundant, compassion, creating a safe space for people to talk about money because most people don't want to talk about money. And when it does come up, it leads to fights or anger or anything like that. So there's a lot of reasons why this role needs to happen where people have this service.
Yeah, it's interesting from a clinical lens because I remember career counseling in school I was really excited about because I knew I was going to be working with guys, but nobody else was really interested. I don't think the profession does a good job of acknowledging mental health and money and its connection, especially for Americans. Like we're very money driven as a culture.
Yeah, and the data tells us all the things we need to know. Like no one wants to talk about it. Funny enough, as we're recording this, just this week, a book came out about how to have money conversations in the clinical space. So like there wasn't even a book that helped coach people on starting the conversation. I haven't read it yet because it just came out, but just excited to see that people are filling the gaps.
I just love when I get new homework every time I have somebody on. It's good.
More to read. Yep.
More to read. Well, so within that, how long have you been doing it?
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it hasn't been that long. So I discovered financial therapy in the pandemic. I was burning out for the second time in my career and was like, okay, I need to pivot again, have something change. And so in that, I was doing like an entrepreneurial project. I was bringing colleagues into the fold. It was frankly a reason to stay connected when we were all just working in isolation. So lots of fun to bring people together. But somewhere in there, someone mentioned financial therapist. And like you, maybe initially I was like, what the heck is that? I have no idea what that is, but I'm curious. So I brought her on to the I don't know, it was like a 20-minute interview that I did with her. And as I heard her describe it, like all these light bulbs went off in my head of like, oh, this is the missing piece to working with therapists. Oh my gosh, there's so much here to unpack. I have my own work to do. And so within like 24 hours, I reached back out to her and said, hey, can I work underneath you? Will you mentor me? Will you help me figure this out? And luckily she said yes. And so I started with my own work, which was really emotional for lots of reasons. And then I started seeing clients under her business. And eventually I brought them in under my own business. And so that was all 2021. So really not that long as we're here in 2026, but a lot's happened.
Well, yeah, and you've been doing education now for a decade, I think, right?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense that you're pretty good about, now that I've got a skill, now I can bring it forward to other people more broadly.
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, I like to do the same. I think it's why we get along.
Fair. Hmm.
So you've been doing it for a few years. The emotionality and mental health around money is unique, often intense, and it certainly comes up with almost every guy I work with. There's always something with money. I feel like as an American, it's kind of like the discussion around nature art in Japan, right? Either Mount Fuji is in the picture or it's from Mount Fuji. Like you can't talk about purpose and security in America without talking about money.
Yes. Yeah. Everyday conversation, everyday transaction, right? We have stuff with money every single day. We don't live in a culture where money doesn't exist. So for folks who are avoiding money, this becomes a big problem because it snowballs into something completely unmanageable.
Yeah, those guys that just don't open the mail.
Yeah, that's one example.
Yeah. Well, so what are kind of the three big trends you see that are a little different for how men come at money than women or non-binary folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one that kind of yells in my head is the idea of like what success looks like. And money is part of that for a lot of men. Of like, to be successful means I have a lot of money. To be successful means I've invested my money. I'm competent. I have financial literacy with money. And even though all of that pressure is spoken socially, I think there's still plenty of people who have no financial literacy. They don't have an opportunity to learn what does credit mean, what are investment options. Obviously, you can hire a professional to fill those gaps for you, but so many people just are like, this feels like a foreign language. It's a bunch of jargon I don't understand. And so we have plenty of men, I'm thinking of the young men specifically, who are like, I have to make $1 million by 22 years old. But like how to do that is missing. But there's this pressure. I will have made it if I'm a millionaire.
It feels like all of our kind of social cachet has moved into money and the ability to project money. And so many of the guys I work with at every age, the like spending just goes up. So they make good money at 20 for a 20-year-old, make good money as a 30-year-old, make good money as a 40-year-old, but they haven't saved anything along the way because they just keep expanding their lifestyle.
And that's called creep, right? Of like it creeps up. We keep up with the Joneses. We're trying to connect with others in our social class. We might be like, oh, I have to have a nice house because everyone I know has a nice house. I have to have a nice car because all of my friends have nice cars. And as people get promotions, it's never that they all of a sudden have more money. Like you just named, the income and expense, they continue to climb together. So expenses don't stay low when you get a promotion. The expenses start to climb for the social and belonging reasons.
And then finding the balance of it. Like I was just talking with somebody about this yesterday where we were talking about cars. And I've got a motorcycle. I put most of my vehicle ego into that. So I generally don't care about what I go get my groceries in. But I remember the first time I pulled up for a presentation, I was getting $1,000 for in a beater. And the way that people looked at me when they saw me pull up, like, oh, this matters now. Like if I'm going to go present myself as successful, I need to do something to look successful when I show up.
I think of realtors for the same reason of like, oh, you want a realtor who has a nice car because that assumes that they're really good at selling houses and they're going to get you your dream home. If they show up in a car that's less than, maybe it's a hit to confidence for those folks of like, can I trust you? Should I work with you? First impression.
Well, and that lines up with kind of the idea that it is kind of masculine to be status focused, and the projection of the things financially is a way to project status.
Absolutely. So I think this is like the first part of your question when it comes to like, what are some things specifically with men and money of just like, oh, I have to be successful, which means lots of money. I have to have plenty to go around and spend it on the things that other people say are valuable. Maybe that's also the friction point. What if I don't care about a nice car? What if I don't care about owning a home, which we're seeing that shift happening right now of like, actually, it's a lot of money to be a homeowner. So like, do I want that? Does that feel like a sound financial decision for them right now? The other piece, even though I don't do couples therapy, it tends to come up even when I work with individuals, is the spender-saver dynamic. So what comes up for you when I say that? Spender-saver. I don't know. Curious.
My ex-wife.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously they're almost, I'm trying to be careful here on your podcast just a little bit because I think there's a common pairing here, gender-wise. There's usually a pairing where the saver is the man, also because they usually have more financial literacy than the woman. in this pairing, hetero pairing. And then there's the spender, which is the woman typically. And so even the marketing when it comes to debt and debt repayment looks completely different. It's gendered for these folks. So for men, as a saver, they're going to celebrate that saying, oh, just work harder, get new opportunities, you're going to be fine. For the woman, 9 times out of 10, they hear, stop spending your money shopping. And what if that's not actually the reason they're in debt? What if it's any of these other things we're tracking? Discrimination, the fact that we get cents on the dollar as a woman to a man, like there's lots there. And so in a couple, that can lead to a lot of friction, right? Of like, I was raised to save money. You were raised to spend money and have autonomy. How do we come together and work our budget if we have a budget? Even though I said budgets are bad, how do I work my conscious spending plan to make that better?
How do we have agreements around it? And I think that's one of those dynamics that the pairs are always going to kind of fall into one or the other a little bit at a minimum. Like one person's going to be a little bit more security based, one person's going to be a little bit more experience based. And yeah, that comes up consistently. Although I see it like a little bit more like, I'd say 60% of guys are the savers, but 40% of my guys are just like, I'll just make more. Let's go.
Yeah. Like challenge accepted. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that caps out at a certain point.
Yeah.
Like at some point, your skill set says this is what you can make.
Right. You hit that ceiling. And so financial therapists, we're slowing people down to say, where are these beliefs coming from? Like where in your background were you raised to save money versus spend money? What messages were you given from your parents, your grandparents, the generations that came before them? And sometimes that's eye-opening. It leads to a little bit more self-compassion. If I'm like, oh, I want to be a saver, but I'm struggling with that. What is the disconnect? Where has that been normed?
Yeah, I think the culture of family and money is really powerful. And that ends up being a lot of work. Like the saver guys I work with, it ends up a lot of times just like having them look at where their money actually is and before they look to tell me the number they think they need.
That was my own dad. How much do you need to actually feel secure? Like what number do you need to see in this account? And then we can like live our lives.
What's fun about it is I used to just ask them to look and then give the number. But what I found is if they looked, the number was always higher. Where if I get them to look at the number, like give me a number and then look, they're much more likely to land in some security.
And it really speaks to the emotions, right? Of like, oh, I feel a certain way when I think about this number versus a number that's too low or not high enough. Lots there that comes up.
Well, and I think it's always interesting, right? I always feel like when we talk about these kind of polar variables around saver versus spender, right? Different people need to hear different things, right? Spender, like the savers need to hear like, hey, what's your number so you can enjoy your life? And spenders need to hear, hey, you want to enjoy your life later too, not just while you can make money.
Yeah. And so that really brings it back to their values of like, why are we doing this? Why are we working so hard to spend? Why are we working so hard to save? What is the underlying emotion that's driving that? Even if there's like a pattern. So for some of our spenders, it's like, okay, am I trying to fill a hole, a gap in myself by spending? Am I looking for a dopamine hit? Do I like the chase of a good deal? Marketing has like really leaned into that, right? The financial psychology is like, yep, we know exactly how to make this feel urgent. We know exactly how to get you to do the minimal clicks, click to buy now kind of thing. So it's not even just on the human, it's on the culture, the society saying, this is what we do. We want you to spend, especially around the holidays.
I can't remember whether it was you that gave me the idea, but when I work with people that are overspending, I start having them just get cash.
That is definitely a very common recommendation of like, can we make this feel more tangible versus a card that feels like it's not actually there? It feels like play money.
Well, and then it puts like a few barriers, right? So the online shopping, it's 2 clicks and then you don't think about it again. Versus if it's cash, go to the store, you look around, you see what's in your wallet, and then you spend it or you don't.
And some folks, that's why they don't have credit cards, because they're like, well, credit cards, I mean, again, if you want to unpack the emotions, just ask people about what comes up for them with the word credit card. And Americans tend to have a lot of like dark imagery of like, I'm in a hole, I can't claw myself out of it, I'm stuck, it feels predatory. And then we look back in time and there were debtors' prisons, right? So there was lots of reasons to have this somatic experience of panic or dread or doom and gloom, because people actually lost their freedom if they owed money to people back in the day. And in some ways, we still have that. We're still punished for having debt. But then we also have credit card numbers going up and up and up, right? Of like, oh, we'll give you a higher limit, keep spending. So it's just very confusing.
Well, I also think it's just hard too, because wages have stagnated for so long and everything's getting more expensive. And so like the data on the couples, right? Money's back to number 1 now, I think, for divorce. And it's that
always
financial
in the top
strain.
5. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Number 1.
At least I think it was. I'll double check that and we'll fact check it.
Yeah. just in case. I mean, I
Just
believe
in
it
case.
because
Yeah.
there are plenty of couples coming into financial therapy. Again, for your listeners, I don't work with couples, but naturally one person of a couple might come in and try and work through their own anxiety or avoidance or financial trauma to make that work. And then they go into the couples work. But it takes two people to come together to talk about money. So I actually like to champion my couples therapists colleagues who are like, yep, I will work with the couple, because kudos to them. There's plenty of need.
Well, that's the two financial advisors I tend to refer to for it. They're math guys, right? And they do that, but they also, what do you want your money to do? How do you feel about it? Conversation, which is kind of rare for the financial advisor guys.
Yeah, like the behavioral finance background. And that's something else people can look for in those accountants or CFPs, certified financial planners. Do they have a behavioral finance course under their belt or a background? Like my CFP, he took a whole behavioral finance master's degree for fun. And I was like, this is why I picked you, because he knows.
You're my
that
nerd.
Yeah, and he knows that if I start to get like activated about something he's saying, I can name it with zero shame from him. Of like, you know what, you're making this sound like it's nuts and bolts, but I'm stuck over here fixated on the number you told me to move over. I don't want to move that amount from one account to another. I want to see a certain amount in this account. And then he gets it, right? But not all professionals have that background.
Because they're just like, but the math doesn't make sense. The interest rate's higher over here.
Yeah, I think the perfect story for listeners on this was posted on LinkedIn sometime last year, but a financial advisor was saying, hey, you're a widow to a woman. You're a widow and you have $60,000 in a savings account. You only need $30,000. Okay. She's going to move it. She's going to change it. She's going to put $30,000 somewhere else. They get to their next meeting. She hasn't done anything. He starts explaining again how important it is to move the money. It's just sitting there. It's doing nothing for you. The other person, there was a tag team of two financial professionals. The other person saw some sort of nuanced shift in how this widow was presenting. And he slowed his colleague down and he said, what is it about that $60,000 that feels important to you? And she said, this is what my husband said we had to have in our account at all times, just in case, just for case of emergency. And he's like, this is why we missed this. We missed the emotional side of there's something that this money represents. She hasn't made progress on her financial goals because we didn't slow it down. We didn't look at the emotional side of it. And then they were able to have a really good conversation about what was going to make her feel safe and still feel like she was doing right by her husband while being a widow with funds that needed to be moved around for lots of reasons. But that's just a beautiful example of people going, well, it's just numbers. We're just talking numbers over my head. Didn't even think about the fact that this was emotional until they asked, what's so significant about that?
I think that kind of ties back into that thing about the younger guys and guys in general having a number that they think they need to have. And the younger the guy, I find, the more unreasonable the number is. Like you were saying, like I need to be a millionaire at 23. Like, okay, so you want to be in the top 0.01% of humanity before your brain's fully developed.
And you're like, let's just reality check this a little bit. But I also remember, like my generation wanted 50,000 a year was like a good number. And now it's like you can't even live off that in certain states or cities specifically. And then I'm an elder millennial. So like there are millennials making 300,000 a year, 500,000 a year. It's awesome. Great. Good for you. But this youngest generation I'm a professor to, I asked them, how much do you want to make in our industry? And they're like, oh, I want to make 200,000. I'm like, where'd this number come from? So some of it does feel like it's just rooted in, and this isn't meant to be flippant, but like hopes and dreams, but also they're consuming something online, right? So we saw a lot of this shifting in the pandemic of like, go have properties, make millions of dollars with vending machines. Like there was all this stuff on my social media specifically because it was financially focused. And that's not the path for everyone.
No, it goes back to that entrepreneurial mindset being so forced at guys. And I don't think most people should be an entrepreneur. Like most people want the security of a job. They want a role. They want a paycheck. To be an entrepreneur is like its own thing that I don't think is acknowledged enough as a rare quality.
Yeah, and how hard it is 24/7. You left a 9-to-5 job to work 24/7.
And so within that, is that another theme that you tend to see in the guys that you work with? Is that entrepreneurial like push for those guys that don't have that natural drive for it?
Oh yeah, I mean we're selling snake oil in some ways of like, let's sell you all the things you want to hear. I don't want to have to work for anyone else. I want to set my own hours. I want to take lots of time off if I want to take time off, which let's be real, once you're an entrepreneur, that's hard to do because like this is your livelihood. You don't get PTO usually. So I think that is
feel personally
part of
attacked
it.
right now, Khara.
Well, I'm an entrepreneur too. So I also am like, ooh, I feel this in my shoulders. Like, ooh, okay.
Ooh.
But like, yeah, I think we sell all the great qualities, but we don't talk enough about what it costs. And you and I were talking about this before we started to record. Like, what does it cost to hustle this way, to be an entrepreneur, to be successful, to have projects that are successful versus they fall apart or they fail? And there was a really interesting stat in 2020 about like 73% of entrepreneurs had ADHD. And I was like, that tracks on some level. That tracks. Yeah, of like I can go towards the next thing. I can move towards the next opportunity. I actually feel like that's a protection mechanism too, because so many times we fail. I fail a lot. Other entrepreneurs fail a lot. And it's like, if we sit in that too long, that's painful. So let's just go towards the next opportunity. And entrepreneurship is definitely a fit for that.
And I think that's kind of the manosphere, right? To like that word's always kind of weird because it just is male focused content. But it's this push for that kind of American individualism, American freedom as masculinity. And it just leaves a lot of guys out in the cold with it. Because if you're not that kind of energetic, if you're not that like a little bit manic, right? Entrepreneurship isn't for you. And now like I keep seeing it in the financial stuff that comes up is this like idea of there's working for yourself and there's being an entrepreneur, and they're two different things. And I think working for yourself can be pretty good. Like that's what I do. But the entrepreneur is like, how do I make money passively? And that's a pretty big scramble. Like, and it's great once it happens. Yeah, it's great once it happens. Right. But like, you know, do you have 5 or 10 years to build up whatever it's going to be to do that?
And then what are the costs of your mental health, your sleep, all the things that are, risk because of that? I'm having a light bulb moment of like, oh, this is why people have moved more back to financial industry, because like they actually have the longevity of like, we can just invest something and let it compound interest for years. We don't have to do anything. No hustle, just like let it coast. Versus entrepreneurship.
Yeah, we take big swings and risk and hope one of them lands.
Yeah. So hyper independence is a word that's coming up for our conversation. And I think that leads to what I had in my head as the third piece for men and money, which is a term I coined back in 2021, financial gatekeeping. Financial gatekeeping. So not financial abuse, but this idea from the place of I am responsible for money. There are lots of women and men who pair up together, and woman is like, I don't have financial literacy. I'm quote unquote stupid with money. I'm going to pair with someone who knows money. So ironically, I work with a lot of therapists, women therapists who pair up with like male engineers, male computer scientists, male accountants. They all, in the woman's eyes, have better understanding of money. And so from that, are we actually putting pressure on these men to financially gatekeep? As in, I don't feel like I can trust you, wife, partner, spouse, whoever you are. So I'm going to take the load. I'm going to take the financial load for the whole family, for the whole household. I have to either be the breadwinner. I have to manage the budget for the household. I've got to tell us what we spend our money on and what we don't. And as you can imagine, that's not great for the romantic relationship specifically. It's not fair to either partner for this financial gatekeeping to happen.
We had Latrice on, and she talked about leadership within a couple and how it's perfectly great when a couple has roles that one person is leadership in, but that doesn't mean that you don't get to consult with the other, and it doesn't mean that you don't get to talk about the emotional impact. And that's usually what I see with those guys that are like the managers, right? The ones that want to do that gatekeeping. It's because they are uncomfortable and unable to have the emotional conversation around the money with their partner. And the other thing that I see a lot of is, while that I think it is masculine to be the person that's a provider, right? The provider role has been within us culturally and just strategically forever. The guys that don't naturally have it feel a pressure to try and feel this pressure to be blustery about it. Like, I can do this, and sell themselves to their partner as somebody who can manage money well, and then don't. And that gatekeeping becomes very shamey, right? Like, don't look at how tight things are, I'll make more. Comes up a lot for the guys I work with.
For sure. And I'm thinking of some of the female clients I've served that didn't know what was going on at all with the finances. They were completely in the dark. Their partner, spouse were saying, hey, I've got it handled. But maybe they didn't. Maybe they're like, there were secret debts. Maybe there was financial infidelity. Maybe there was shame of like, I should have this figured out. I'm the provider, like you just named. I'm the provider. I should be able to do this for our family. But what if they still have gaps in their education? What if they were told, take a risk and throw your money into Bitcoin or something, and then it didn't work out? Like, not to throw shade, but I am going to throw shade at Bitcoin on your podcast. So it's like, like there is no get rich quick scheme, but I think men and women are both susceptible to that messaging, especially if they're feeling completely uncomfortable or even desperate with their finances of like, I got to have something shift quick, fast.
I think a lot of that pressure comes from systemic problems too. Like the big thing that I see a lot when we talk about risk taking and money is men are more likely to be seen as the problem for themselves without seeing a system of pressure. And so things like Robinhood, the online gambling,
Yep.
stagnating wages, increased cost, these young guys, they've been told that that's what they need to be, and they have their skill set, and then that skill set keeps changing. Like computer science majors that are graduating today don't have jobs, right? There's no money for them. And so all of a sudden, it makes a lot of sense for them to take a big swing and a risk because they don't feel like they have much to lose. But then that risk keeps dropping into the hole.
Yeah. And then we have like this pattern or the hole we can't climb out of. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm thinking of also of the other side of this. I had a client once who was a man and he was like, hey, I want to be a stay-at-home parent. Like that is what I want to do with my life. And he felt really certain and grounded in that until he had all this pushback from the people in his life. Are you sure? Are you sure? You're sure? You should be providing for your family. Should. And all of a sudden it was like, can I do both? Can I somehow become, an entrepreneur and stay at home and be present with my kids? And I remember I gave him the Barbie movie as homework. And he was like, all right, fine, whatever. Had a kick-ass wife and she was great and he loved what she was doing. And you could see there was a lot of admiration there. And he came back and he was like, shit, is this what women think and feel all the time? And I was like, mm-hmm. Like, how do you do it all? How do you make good money and be there for your family and be a good parent, all the things? And so I don't know why that's popping up as we're talking, but just the other side of that, of like not just a provider in finances, provider at home, if that's a role they want.
Yeah, like I like how Scott Galloway puts it. He's like, sometimes being the provider is understanding your partner is better at that money thing than you, and back them up a little bit. I like that with the younger guys, that it's more often a consideration. Like I don't feel like what I see consistently is for guys over 35 and 40, the idea that you could do something other than provide is not something that you've ever considered. So for guys in their 40s that are married, there wasn't a conversation with their spouse about who was going to stay home if somebody was going to stay home. The understanding was, is she choosing to stay home or not? Not which of us will. And I think for younger guys that are smart and kind of watching what's happened to the older guys, it's a conversation. And that's hard because now all of a sudden these guys, rather than dealing with the pain of this is all I can be and I don't have a choice, they're falling into the trap that women have been stuck in for 30 years of like, well, I guess I have to do everything really amazing.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Good luck, right? Like,
yeah, no, I completely agree. And I'm also feeling a lot of gratitude that I'm married to a husband who, in his most playful, was like, I would love to stay at home and play with the kids. Now, this was before we had a child. We have a 4-year-old now. And I don't know if that would still be true. He loves her a lot and he loves he's a good dad. But just the idea of like, is this going to be a conversation or not? Like I remember saying, we are not having children if you're not actively a part of this. Like I'm not going to be a single parent by behavior. I'm not going to be, a single parent in the background just because we're married and you're off working all the time. Like I was really adamant about that. It's just feeling gratitude we were able to have that hard conversation. And it sounds like the youngest generation might be having that too. Like it's not assuming one of us is staying home. It's who and how and how's it going to look?
well, and I think it's also just forced with the younger guys, right? So young women are outscaling men rather rapidly. And so if, what is it? The tall woman problem where like, and we don't want to curtail or cut anybody off at the knees, right? We want everybody to have the expanse to grow and move within the systems. But when 60+% of college graduates are women, half of those gals have to figure out how to date a guy who's not as successful as them, and coming up with some acceptance around what that role looks like, how to have those conversations, how does that feel, and then the shame that the older men and women are going to put on that dynamic, I think is the other thing that doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, making them feel emasculated when maybe they're like completely content and everything is going splendidly except for the pressure on the outside.
Like the only guys I see that do it really well doing the stay-at-home dad thing are like veterans. They're like, yeah, my masculinity, like, yeah, okay, I've been shot at. Go fix my toilet. I don't care what you think about me changing a diaper.
Yeah.
But for the rest of the guys, they don't have that masculine security. And it's hard to maintain when the world is telling you you're bad, when you're a guy that shows up to be in a classroom and everybody looks at you like you're a pedophile because you're in a second grade class. Like it's our society is not moving rapidly towards allowing guys to have the variation of choice that we want them to have.
Yeah, that feels heavy.
Well, so we've got the provider role, hyper independence versus and gatekeeping. And then I feel like I got a little lost in the conversation.
Oh, spender and saver. We
Spender
touched
and
on
saver,
that.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
That's just
There we
some
go.
roles for men to consider. And just putting language to things. I think that's been my role in financial therapy so far, is just giving people language for experiences and saying, does this fit? Does this resonate? Is this part of your experience? To know that financial gatekeeping was like this middle gray area between the horrible financial abuse none of us want to experience and being completely financially healthy, there was like this gap, right? Of like, what is in between? And some of it wasn't malicious, right? It wasn't manipulative. It was just, hey, I was told by my partner that I'm the smartest one with money of us, and so I'm going to handle it. But what if that breeds resentment? Or what if I make a huge mistake and now it feels like a lot of shame? And so I think that's why I wanted to bring it on here of like, financial gatekeeping is new, but the underlying behavior behind it isn't. We just didn't have language for it.
It reminds me, like I joked about my ex-wife, and it's not because she was a spender or a saver. It was because we kind of oscillated those roles, but we never figured out how to talk about money in an effective way where at the end of the conversation, we were both on the same page. Like our emotional responses to money and math was very different. Like she's better at math than me. She's an IT, she's a computer programmer. But the emotionality behind the money was really complex. And we never, like towards the end, that was our problem, is that we couldn't figure out kind of who was taking a role in one or the other and get on the same page. It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's never, I mean, for most people, it's not going to be smooth sailing always or continuously. It's going to have its bumps. And so sometimes I have people just try on like, okay, let's try a quick word association. What comes up for you? So I can imagine listeners could do this with a partner or spouse or just on their own of like I mentioned earlier, the word credit card. What comes up? Is it mostly negative things and thoughts? Is it like, oh, hell no? Is it somatic? It's in my neck or my jaw, or it's like in my fists, like whatever. But like just a couple different words. So I usually, almost every client I work with, I do this word association with. And so I usually start with savings. What comes up for you when I say the word savings? And as you can imagine, I've heard the whole gamut of it. I've heard savings as security, and I feel like I can exhale and everything is good. And then I've heard from people, I don't ever have enough. All I feel is shame. I don't even have savings. Zero, zip, zilch, not there. And so there's a lot of spaciousness just to get to know people's values and their emotions with just like 4 little words. So savings, credit card, debt, and wealth are the 4 I usually have people try first. And whoa, there's a lot there.
Well, so that's a fun, like, I think that'll be a fun exercise for guys to do, and ideally do it with their partners, right? Like it kind of goes into naming and sharing your values with your partner to see how they support each other. If there was another skill that you wish people just generally had, right? Like there's a lot of really good information out there around financial literacy. There's a lot of people doing good work on that. But part of why I wanted to have you on was there's not a lot of people talking about the emotional skill around money. Like if there was one skill that guys could have that would make their life infinitely better about this, what would it be?
I think the one that I wish I'd had before I got married and or partnered with someone seriously is what I call the red light, green light, yellow light exercise. And it's coming from values. It's like, what do I value spending my money on? Green light list. What do I want to put my money towards? Red light, absolutely not. This is never valuable to me. This is actually going to piss me off. And yellow is like, we got to talk about it. So some examples that might fit in these categories, depending on the person. In the green light list, you might have someone saying, yeah, I want to shop for designer handbags, or I love experiences. I want to put all our money towards a solid vacation, at least a couple times a year. But you can imagine in a partnership, if people have those 2 different things on their green light list, what is the compromise there? Of like, I want to spend it on things versus I want to spend it on experiences. Both have value, but like there's going to be some friction. And so I wish someone had encouraged me to just like own my truth of like, this is what I want to spend my money on. Green light, hell yeah, let's go. No conversation needed. These are always going to be a yes. And I wish someone had said, own your truth about what you don't want to spend your money on, because we're stereotyping people. So as a woman, I don't want to spend my money on designer handbags and never have. And yet that's the common thing. Yeah. And so it kind of, as you're hearing, it kind of pisses me off that people assume this is what it is. But like on my red light list, it would be that kind of stuff. Like I don't want to spend my money on subscriptions to Netflix. No offense, folks. I don't want to spend it on handbags. Like own our truth. What's red, what's green. And then the yellow list really gives people a chance to say, I don't really know. This might be case by case. Let's have a conversation. And I wish as my husband and I had gotten together, someone had empowered us to do that. It probably would have prevented some of the fights that naturally happen. When it's like, hey, we want to take a vacation. How much should we spend? Do you want to eat at this restaurant that's 3-star restaurant? Do you want to upgrade to first class on an airplane? Like whatever it is, it kind of creates some preparation versus reaction.
Well, and I think it goes back into like Mark Manson was talking about picking your partner, and the kind of Gottman research on like 70% of the arguments that you have after the first year stay the same.
Oh, gosh. I haven't heard that before, but okay.
It's because it's in moments like this, it's what are your green lights and what are their red lights, and when they don't overlap, that's going to be a consistent argument in your marriage. And like I like how he put it of like, okay, so you're going to have these things and you need to look for them and find them, and then you need to look at all the ways that they improve your life, all the ways that they make you happy, all the ways that you partner well. And is it worth being 30% unhappy for giving them the things they need that you don't like? And are you comfortable accepting 70% of your happiness for the things that they can't provide to you? And I don't think enough of our colleagues that are doing couples therapy are literate enough around talking about these things around money, which is really annoying to me, considering that it's like in the top 5 for as long as we've been measuring it.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually alarming that we don't have it as part of grad school or training or whatever that looks like. I know I gave you homework to read a book that just came out, and we'll see if that fills the gap or not. I mean, I don't think one book's going to cut it, let's be real. But I would love to see it in every grad program when it comes to mental health therapists, because that's what we're talking about. If we're talking about stress and anxiety and worry about stuff, money is a part of that. It's going to show up somewhere. And most clinicians are like, nope, we're just going to like pretend we're not talking about that. Let's go talk about your sex life instead, because we'd rather do that. That's what Americans are saying. We'd rather talk about our sex lives than our money.
And considering how shameful we are about sex life, like what is it, 60 or 70% of people don't share their full range of fantasy with their partner?
Yeah.
And money's
That's why
worse.
I love Mojo Upgrade. Like, hey, if you don't want this to be awkward, well, let's just go and endorse all the things we're interested in. Can we actually like have a conversation? So plug that for your listeners, Mojo Upgrade, for like, what do I want sex-wise with my partner? What am I interested in?
That's great. I'm going to go look that up.
Yeah. So like literally how it works, just for listeners who are like, I don't know if should I go searching for this thing? Like, this sounds questionable.
Especially not at work.
Yeah, please don't. Although we know people are on Pornhub in the middle of their workday. That stat sticks with me for some reason. But when it comes to Mojo Upgrade, partner A, mixed responses, whole list of different interesting sex kink things that they might be interested in. They only endorse the ones they're interested in. Partner B, same thing. What they have in common gets put on a shared list that they both can see. So it actually takes away the awkwardness of like, well, you said we wanted to do role playing, but this other person's like, hell no, I never want to do that. And so it creates just a list of these are the things we have in common. Is that now our own internal green light to try it out?
That sounds like a really good way to get some green lights and some momentum on the other things too.
I think one other thing that's coming up, Tim, if this is okay, is as we talk about money being relational, the other piece of my work in the short time I've been a financial therapist in the grand scheme of things is I've realized that the Enneagram is another part of this equation for folks of like, okay, I have different values than my partner. How do I connect with them? How do I have compassion or at least neutrality to hear them out on what's important to them? And so the Enneagram is a personality test for folks who aren't aware of it. It tells us how we can respond to other personality types. It's kind of a roadmap of like, here, you can respond this way to someone who's highly intellectual. Here's how you might respond to someone who's very emotional, right? And they're in their deep melancholy feelings, how you might interact with them. And so I took it upon myself to take a deep dive with a colleague and say, hey, each of the Enneagram personality types respond differently to money. And the short answer is yes. They respond differently to saving, spending, and earning money differently. And so we tried to put some language to that for folks of like, okay, if I identify as an Enneagram 3, which I do, and I'm partnered with a 6, which I am, how do we come together? What is our commonalities and what creates that friction? And so it leads to a little bit more empathy for a partner of like, I can understand you from this roadmap of the Enneagram.
Yeah, I think the personality tests are a lot of fun now because all the ones that have gotten some staying power, like the Enneagram, they've got enough data behind them that they're useful. They're just not all encompassing. I think that's where it gets a little weird where all of a sudden your personality type becomes like your star sign for some folks, which gets a little weird to me.
Yeah. We don't have to like go all in like a cultish way, but we can definitely get curious about, does it give us any insight?
Well, and just the communication style of it. Like that's one of the things I like about the Enneagram in specific for communication is how it breaks down. Like this is the kind of communicator you are. This is the kind of communicator this person is. And here's some guidance on how you two can connect. So to give the listeners an example, like that aren't familiar with the Enneagram, like you said, you're a 3, your husband's a 6. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that looks like?
Oh, yeah. I've been doing a lot of work around this, Tim. That's why that heavy side just showed up. What do I want to share with listeners and how deep do I want to go? Enneagram 3s are described as achievers. Go figure. I'm a serial entrepreneur for better or worse. Tim and I talked about this off the recording. But that means that I tend, in my most unhealthy, to steamroll ahead. It means I'm going to steamroll over my loved ones. It means I'm going to try and control people. I know that that's my growth edge. That's where I need to work on myself. I become a royal bitch, and I don't like it. For my husband, who's an Enneagram 6, he lives in anxiety, and that has its strengths. Like, he can see worst case scenario. He can plan ahead. He makes a really good person in the workplace that can be like, let's look at our contingency plans if shit hits the fan. And so 6s shine when it comes to, I have thought of all the possible outcomes, including all the horrible ones that no one wants to sit in. And so when I steamroll ahead, he wants to dig in his heels. He's like, no, let's not rush this. Let's not rush the car purchase, for example. Let's look at and research all the different types of cars. Let's look at the Better Driver, whatever the website is, of like their ratings, right? And he's like, let's take that deep dive. And I'm like, and my mental load is like this big, as in small. And I'm like, I know what I want and I just want to go for it, right? So it can cause conflict, because when we're talking big financial decisions like a car purchase, of course there's going to be friction there. And so it not only does it lead to communication styles, it talks about our core motivations. Core motivator for the anxious type 6 could be, I want to feel stable and secure. And stable and security is like in direct contrast to entrepreneurship and risk, right? So even when we got together with our first financial planner and he asked, what do you want from your money? My husband said, I want stability. And I said, I want freedom. And when he said stability, I literally went, like, what? Like, it was like a bad word to say stability. Now, having done my own financial therapy work, I know that you can have both. I know that both can be pursued. But then it was like polarizing of like, you want stability and I want freedom. And how are we supposed to do this as a couple? So lots there to unpack.
Well, I think that's the beauty of, like I was talking with somebody else about this, and the two kind of strongest couple types I generally see, and I don't see couples, but just hearing about it in the world, right, working with the husbands, is either they're a very similar personality type to their partner, and then they just like move like a bullet train through life until something goes wrong, and then everything falls apart for a minute because there's no varied skill set, right? So as long as they both like get in the same lane, it's just great. We go really fast. And then they're like, oh no, something went wrong. And then on the other end is the like almost polar opposite couple that respect each other, right? Where that builds a lot more of a stable life. It sounds like you and your husband, like when you're at your best, right? You push things, you get more, and he keeps the guardrails on.
Exactly. Like, he'll keep my feet on the ground, my head's in the clouds. The more I've done Enneagram training, I'm now certified to do Enneagram work, the more language I got for this. And so like, they're like, oh yeah, a 6 is the glue. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've described my husband as the glue to my life for the 15 years we've been together. So it was like interesting to see how that just naturally shows up. And when you look at the Enneagram image, there's all of these lines connecting different types. So a very common question I get is like, what types are compatible with other types? And I was just saying this to someone the other day. It's actually easier for me to name what types you're not compatible with, where it feels like oil and water, where it's not going to mix well. But 3s and 6s are very compatible. So I feel very fortunate. And that doesn't mean that if you partner with anyone other than a 6 as a 3, that you're doomed. It's just looking at where are they with their health versus stress response to their Enneagram type.
Well, and I think that's the thing about all these models that we talk about, just for like the self-help community, the clinical health community, like if they start being descriptive, that's great. If they start being predictive, that tends to go sideways.
That's that cultish thing of like, there's a right way to be a 3 or a 6 or a 2 or a 9.
Or like the attachment styles are another one now that like, thanks to TikTok therapy are now like, as opposed to just acknowledging like, I'm like this around these topics and I've got work to do. And you're like that around those topics. You've got work to do. Let's see where we can come together on it. And the Enneagram stuff, that was a big part of your book, right?
I co-authored a book called Your Enneagram and Money. So it really is meant to be like a bite-sized book. As a 3, that's something else people need to know is like I'm succinct when it comes to writing. So my books are like quickly produced and out there. But this book isn't meant to be like a huge book that takes people forever. Some people go straight to their Enneagram type if they know it, and others are looking at their partner's type and getting some insight. But we break it down by subtypes of Enneagram because there's actually 27 types total, not just the 9 most people know about. And then we look at spending, saving, earning potential for all of those 27 types with stories. So I'm a storyteller by nature. I like giving stories of like, here's how this might show up behaviorally with stories in the book. It was a lot of fun.
Like, so one, it's a short book that they can absolutely read and get some ideas on.
Yeah, it's like 150 pages, not long.
It's not long. Well, and I really liked the training that you did at the state conference on it. Like it was really nice to finally, because we've done so much work around the suicidality stuff. It was really nice to see you in your other lane And that's why I was excited to bring you on to talk to folks about this. Like, it's interesting. I think there's probably 4 or 5 different frames that I point clients out around money, right? There's like yours and the Enneagram stuff and kind of getting it personality based. Then there's like the live your rich life guy, and his stuff is great. And I don't think it matters terribly much when you get to an established one. It's just, can this frame work for you and your life and your partner to give you what you need to have the emotional and the logic conversation happening at the same time?
There's no one size fits all. That's why we have thousands of books about money. So a lot of people, it's just like helping bring them from the shame-based books to the financial therapy aligned books, which is a shorter list, as you can imagine. Financial therapy has only been around for about 20 years. It's not that old. And so we have a lot of work to do, but I think it's now becoming more of a household name of like, this is another service, another opportunity to keep working on ourselves or in our coupleship, right? Of like, how do we make that work? But yeah, people are like, oh my God, when they find out what financial therapy is, more often than not, people say, I've needed this forever, or I know someone who needs this. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, I think it goes into the argument that we don't teach in high school financial literacy, and we don't teach emotional literacy. And more, especially as AI is replacing logic-based work, that seems like something we should be teaching teenagers.
Yeah, it's another soapbox.
Well, so we've got your book and your website to get folks some more information on. Are there 1 or 2 other thought leaders that you're really impressed by that maybe have a little bit of a different voice than you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ed Combs is a marriage and family therapist, financial therapist. He's also a firefighter, so definitely someone secure in his masculinity with 3 children and a wife that is a high earner. And so I definitely think of his book, which is called The Healthy Love and Money Way. It is those attachment styles as it relates to money. So are you showing up in anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized, or secure? And he is someone that I think, obviously speaks to men, is a man, has a lived experience, and his path was not linear. So I love hearing his story woven throughout the book as to how he came to be a financial therapist. And now he's a financial therapist and financial planner for couples. So he does a lot of great emotion containment to talk about investments and financial planning.
Well, that's got to be a trip transitioning from a firefighter to that.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. Yeah.
Sounds like a guy I want to get a beer with.
Right. I keep trying to get him in Colorado because he needs to come out here for a couple things now. But yeah, he's in North Carolina, I believe. And so he's one. There are a couple female authors that are really like into the female empowerment with money stuff. So I don't think that's relevant to your audience here. But there's one called Feel Good Finance. And that's Asia Evans as a female financial therapist, woman of color. She speaks to like some of the cultural aspects and financial intergenerational trauma that comes up there. So Feel Good Finance would be another one that people might enjoy.
Well, I imagine that one's got a lot of cross relevance. Like a lot of folks that I work with that either grew up poor in a family that had been poor long enough that there's generational like weight on poverty, or folks that grew up with families that lost it either to addiction or just poor decisions, and kind of what that looks like. And so the unpacking the history of your family with money goes a long way that I don't think people quite give the weight and credence it needs in your individual work, right? Like you're an amalgam of who you came from. And so you've got to know that before you can know where you want to go. Well, so I'll make sure we've been partnered with goodbookstore.com, and they pair you up with a local bookstore and they'll ship books to you like Amazon. So it ends up being about $2 or $3 more for a book, but you get to support the local bookstore. And we've got a few lists. I'll make sure that for this episode, we get your books, these 2, and probably the Live Your Rich Life book too on there, just because I like it. And that way, if folks are looking for a more deep dive into these things to go through, what I generally recommend guys do is if they're on their own to read it and kind of come up with a value set. So that way, when they're looking for their partners and they're looking for somebody to build something with, they find somebody that's kind of compatible, either from like you and your husband, where they're filling something that you don't necessarily do, or they find somebody that's in alignment and they can just go really fast until something breaks.
Right. Bullet train.
Which is a valid way to go about it. Like the breakage is rough, but that fast thing that those couples do is really impressive. And then if they're coupled, right, I think that this is a great like check-in thing, right? Where you and your partner read the book and come back together, or listen to the podcast and come back together and talk about these things. So hopefully guys can use them.
I hope people do the exercises like you had already kind of named individually or in a couple, even just the word association. Some people might feel inclined to do like a money family tree or Money Genogram, which we're all super fans of here in the financial therapy space. So all of us would actually ask people to do that. but there's something so powerful about the handwritten aspect and then seeing the visual kind of pop out of like, look, 3 generations of people with financial trauma. Look, here's people who haven't ever talked about money. Of course, I don't want to talk about money. So just added self-compassion when we see generation to generation stuff that's been passed on.
So when I think of the genogram, I always think of like a fancied family tree.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
So for the folks that aren't familiar, can you describe the genogram a little bit?
Yeah, most people are encouraged to go 3 generations back. So it might start with you as the listener, followed by your parents or whoever raised you, followed by whoever raised and birthed them. And so it tends to be child to parent to grandparent as the 3 generations. It's just an example. Or if you have your own children, they go below you. And a lot of times people kind of nerd out about format, but I'm just like, draw circles for all I care. Circles and put names, put ages. And then from the financial side of it, the questions I have people ask are, what did they teach me about money? What beliefs might have they had about money? What careers did they have? And then did they have any financial traumas? And financial trauma, by definition, is all encompassing. So when people think financial trauma, they only think loss, like layoff, maybe someone cheated them out of money, maybe somebody took their identity and stole it and did all sorts of awfulness. But financial trauma is a spectrum of experiences. So it can also be things like my parents fought constantly about money and that was traumatic. So just like you and I as mental health people know, clients, whatever they tell us is traumatic is traumatic. We don't tell them what's financial trauma. They tell us what's financial trauma. And so on this genogram or fancy family tree, you're just kind of putting some stuff to the side of people's names of like, here's a whole history of people who were agricultural farmers, right? Of like, oh, well, that explains some of the save for emergencies beliefs because that was how they handled things if half their crops were destroyed, right? So like there's a lot of insight just by mapping it out visually.
Yeah, I think a lot about my family where my grandfather, he was a classic 50s provider dad, right? And he killed himself early. We lost him at 63 because he worked that much to get money for the family. But then the trauma of that with my father was my father didn't value money, right? He was like, well, it's not worth it to get that then. So just spend it, live your life, doesn't matter, don't have any security. And what's interesting is people's stories are so unique and then come to the same problems, right? Which is super fun. But I think by naming where your family and background is around money helps you name where you are and give you a better understanding. So I hope the guys listening take some time and do that. I think it'll be really good. And if you have a video that takes somebody through Genogram well, let me know and I'll link it in the show notes so that folks can have it as a resource. Have you done any public training for that yet? I think you've got some videos up, right?
Not specific to Genogram. That would actually be Ed Combs' stuff. But because we just put together a book together, I have an image that I'm happy to send you to put in the show notes for folks so they can kind of see how it would map out of like, yes, it has some of the polarizing language of spender and saver and frugal and not frugal, blah, blah, blah. But it was just an example for folks who might want to start mapping one out. So happy to send that.
That'd be great. One of the things I like about having you and other education clinicians is we always have resources on like, okay, go try this. Right?
Yeah. Here's an image. Here's a graphic, something.
Go play with it and see where it takes you.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time and let you get a little break before your next thing today. Last time we had you on, we had you answer the question of what's a truth about masculinity that you learned before you were 12 that's remained true. And yours is probably one of my favorite answers from a gal, which is don't suffer fools and kick ass.
Right. Still true.
Still true. Still actively true.
Oh, man.
Is there another lesson that you might share with folks that's been useful in your life?
Oh, man. I've been working on my own therapy. So here's me being completely transparent with listeners. So the one that's coming up right now is what it looks like to actually show emotion as a man, right? So my dad definitely was the masculine, tough guy. People were more afraid of him when they should be more afraid of my mother. My husband was smart enough. He actually was the first to say, I'm not afraid of your dad. I'm afraid of your mom. And I was like, oh, how interesting. This is why we're together. Because my dad's a big teddy bear, but he's got the goatee and the tattoos all down his arms, right? So I'm thinking more about the emotions that have been modeled in the family tree, actually, in my own therapy. And I would hope that men can express emotions, and it's not just masked by anger or stuffed, which is what my family did, is they stuffed a lot of emotions. And that's connected to our suicide conversation we've had before. So I learned at a young age to compartmentalize my emotions, and now I'm starting to feel all of them, for better or worse. But hey, as a financial therapist / mental health therapist, got to practice what I preach to clients. So here we are.
I think like it's interesting, right? When we think of like being able to be stoic as masculine, I think it's an important skill to have. Like I liked Robert Allison's take on this, right? He's like, I feel like our whole job as clinicians working with men is to teach guys you don't have to hold it together all the time, but you have to hold it together most of the time. And I think that's the gift of fathers like yours is you know that you can operate in a world while holding emotion. They just didn't give you the other end of when it's okay. Like, okay, so now we're through the world and we're home and we're with our people and we can have the moment to tend to that. Like you got through the workday, you got through the hard thing, and that is masculine. It is to put your head down and do the fucking thing. But then afterwards, how do you like take some pride in that? How do you process the pain that it took to get through it? How do you model for the young men around you that, yeah, man, you do the hard thing and then you celebrate the fruits of that. And some of the celebration of that is being with your safe people and having that emotionality.
Beautifully said, Tim. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot there that I'm working on, and I'm sure I'll be having some conversations with my dad here soon once I have the language of like, we're both allowed to cry now, right? Like we're both getting older.
Well, if your track record shows any kind of true, I'm sure in 6 months it'll be a very different conversation as that will move, as you don't tend to sit still on any problems you have.
It's true. It's part of that Enneagram 3-ness. Now people have like quick snapshot of how that looks. Yeah, for sure.
Is there any kind of last thing that you want to leave the listeners with before we say goodbye?
I mean, all of this kind of work, it's just an invitation to stay curious and have compassion for yourself and others. So there is no one right way to deal with money, to heal from money. Hopefully the tools mentioned today are a starting place, but it might just be the tip of the iceberg for some folks. I know we talked offline about some people might be like, I want to be a financial therapist. And so I will make a plug for the book, Becoming a Financial Therapist, which Ed Combs and I wrote together. And it's like a chicken soup for the soul kind of book, like little stories of people who started this profession of financial therapy. And none of us had a linear path to getting here, but it's a really inspiring, in my mind, an inspiring book of, hey, here are 20 stories of the champions of financial therapy, and welcome to the community, welcome to the team. So if people want that inspiration, they can check out that book.
Yeah, I think I've got a few clients that work in finance that I'm going to throw that at.
Yeah, just to see if it resonates. Like, hell yeah, this is what I've been missing. I want this kind of job.
Man, you are great at the math and the hustle. Like, yeah. Maybe this will add something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as always, I'm so happy you're in the community, and I'm really glad that we get to connect like this. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
That's our conversation about mental health, men, and money. As always, we fact-check the episode and have a few clarifications. First, money and divorce statistics. I stated that money was the #1 cause of divorce. While financial conflict is a major engagement area, present in 20 to 40% of cases, it's not the primary reported cause. Research confirms that the leading causes are lack of commitment, infidelity, and chronic conflict. The mix-up happened because I conflated what I see in my practice every day with the national averages. Moving forward, I'll be sharper about separating my clinical experience from the hard statistics so you know exactly where the information is coming from. Second, we said around 73% of entrepreneurs have ADHD. That number is overstated. Research shows that ADHD traits are more common among entrepreneurs, roughly 25 to 35%, or roughly 3 times as high as the rest of the population. While that's statistically relevant, it's still not the majority of entrepreneurs. Third, when discussing saver-spender gender pairings, it's important to clarify that while men on average score slightly higher on financial literacy assessments, that reflects social and educational factors, not inherent ability. There's significant variation within couples, and women often manage day-to-day household finances. Finally, when we talked about persistent marital arguments, we said that 70% of them don't change after the first year. A more precise framing is this: 69% of marital arguments after the first year are perpetual, meaning that they stem from enduring differences, not that they began in the first year and freeze there. As always, full APA sources are in the show notes on the website. Please let us know if we got anything else wrong. Thanks for listening to the end. We're glad you found the information useful. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe so that we can continue providing clear information to guys who need it. See you next week when we talk about nice guys' anger and what it's really costing them. This is Tim Winnicky with American Masculinity, wishing you the very best day. Take care.